All right, I got One Piece battle for you guys, and it's Scopper Gaban back in his prime versus Oden. Now we know that they did spar against one another back in the day. You know, the anime showed it, and I'm pretty sure they showed it in the manga too, like in a little panel they showed it, right? And they're both fighting one another. And it's Odin and Gaban, not Odin and Rayleigh, not Odin and Roger, but Gaban. I think, and I might, be stretching shit, I might be, but I don't think I am. I think I'm correct. Odin was sparring against Gaban back then. Now, let's talk about the fight first. All right, strength. They're gonna be fighting at Lodestar. All right, I know that we haven't made Lodestar yet, but these two characters know about Lodestar. Both of them do. But I'll give you the breakdown real quick. I'll save every other comment for later. Odin, I got him with the strength. Physical strength, I'm giving it to Odin because we've seen more from Odin than a prime Gaban. As far as like physical strength feats go, he took down the mountain god, which was just this giant ass boar, which isn't too crazy, right? But he turned, you know, oh my god, he was out there fighting against Kaido for crying out loud. I don't know of Gaban doing any of this shit, right? He wasn't fighting anybody too tough, He was scrapping with people for sure, because he knows how to use hockey and he knows how to use his axes. And obviously they were fighting against one another, sparring against one another when he was on the crew. But yeah, I got physical strength, striking, lifting power going to Odin. Speed also going to Odin. Like I said, when he went against that mountain god, and I like to use that as a speed feat, he had to get there quick because the old girl of King Moon's girl, right? She was already 8. He was like, "Oh shit, that girl is about to die. Let me just let me just speed up in here and cut that shit in half real quick." And that's what he did. Gaban, he's pretty quick. He actually is quick. I know what he did in the manga, but I'm telling you, Odin's faster. That's just what I think. You can disagree with me if you want, and you can disagree with me on the strength too if you want. I think it's really close between these two animals or these two men. So durability goes to Odin as well. I don't want to. Obviously, Gaban's durability was better when he was younger, but the way he is right now in the manga, I'm like, is it really that much better? You know, I'm probably giving the durability to Odin personally. Because all the shit that happened to him, like even in his like last, you know, he was standing in boiling water. Where a regular man would have then died, he was still there. You know, probably using Amanaki to keep himself, from dying. Maybe not. We don't know. But he took hits from Kaido, right? Um, so I'm gonna give the durability to him. Endurance wise, shit. And I'm not using old Gaban, right? Old Gaban and Prime Gaban. Oh man, I'll let you know towards the end. But endurance wise, I'm giving it to Odin because Odin stayed in that oil for an hour. I ain't saying that Gaban couldn't do something like that, but Odin, I think he just lasts longer in a fight. When it comes to intelligence, though, I do think Gaban's kind of smart. Kind of, he's a little bit smart. Odin, he's smartish too. He's a good leader, but I think Gaban's more like knowledgeable. You know, like he's kind of like the one that's like, if it's like a dangerous area, he might be like, um, I don't think this is a place we want to like, tread lightly in, that kind of shit, right? And he's like that kind of guy. And then also when it comes to experience, I am gonna give it to Gaban. Yes, Odin is experienced in swordsmanship and other things, man. But guess what? This man out here with axes, surviving the Grand Line, like all the places in the Grand Line, not just one place, boys. So I'm giving it to Gaban on that one. Close skills go to Odin on my paper. When it comes to swordsmanship and axemanship, his axemanship's really good, but Odin, I think he can scrap a little bit too. Scopper, maybe, but I got Odin with that. Range skills, I got Gaban. I know he can swing his axe and then throw Kankazaki at him. Now I'll get to that in a minute. I've been wanting to tell you guys something for a minute, and I said it in like other videos too. But range skills go to Gaban, and recovery goes to Gaban as well. Now none of these characters are known for like you know reviving themselves with like self-healing properties, but one man's alive now, one's not. So that's why I'm giving it to him. Hacks go to Odin. Two sword style. Armament hockey conquers hockey. You know. But he survived it. He even survived a hit from Roger too. I didn't even like bring that up earlier. You know. And he got back up for like I'll see what that's about. Kind of shit. Environment. I'm giving it to Gaban. The guy he knows how to like be when it comes to like being in a new place. So yeah, Odin and Gaban have been to Lodestar, but because Gaban's been to many of islands, he knows how to manage that better than Odin does. So Odin is gonna win this fight, though. By the way, extreme diff. And let me get to what I was gonna tell you like at the beginning of this video, but I wanted to wait. I think, right, because of what he said. So Gaban believed he was the second strongest in the crew, right? But obviously that's not true, right? If you know about my other video, I said that Gaban in his old age versus Rayleigh in his old age, it's extreme diff, but Rayleigh wins. Um, Rayleigh back then was definitely he could beat Odin or Gaban, one on one. Definitely, there's no doubt in my mind, and I'm saying high difficulty. Um, he had better, than both of them, right? But out of those two, they were fighting and scrapping with each other so Gaban could learn hockey better. That's why they were doing that shit. It's kind of like, you don't have to use too much, brain power to get that, right? So they were scrapping against one another so that Gaban could get to Rayleigh's level and like basically get to Odin's level because Odin was actually stronger than Gaban was, in some areas, and Gaban was better than him in some areas, right? Because what did I just say about this bout? I said that Odin wins extreme difficulty. It's definitely not an easy fight. But he couldn't go against Rayleigh because Rayleigh already had the experience, and he's kind of like that guy in the crew who's like really smart and also just damn, he's kind of better than Gaban. Silver, copper, come on now. You get the point. And I'm not saying that Gaban don't know anything, but Gaban at those times he was trying to learn and trying to get better, right? I don't think they were equal back then, and I think like even like now they're closer than they were back then because Gaban back then wasn't as experiencing his Conquerors hockey as he is now. Now he's experiencing his Conquerors hockey enough, and he understands how important that shit is now. You know, with everything that happened with Harold and everything that happened in Elbath and what's happening now in Elbath, he knows the importance of why that shit's there. You know, he had those two guys that were better than him, like, so he could kind of ease off a little bit. But now, in his old age, he has to fucking put it on, and he has to put it on so that people younger than like Luffy and the crew know, like, yo, you gotta be able to use Conqueror's hockey to damage people now, and like use it to a high degree. You know, and that's just what I think about that. You know, you people who think that he beats Oden, you know, it better be extreme difficulty though, because it's not no low diff. You know, you guys are definitely glazing if you're saying it's low diff. But if you're saying he wins an extreme diff battle, I can, you know, I don't agree, but I can see that, you know, being a close fight. But I got Odin winning that shit. You know, I just don't see Gaban being like, you know, yeah, I mean, as far as like back then in his prime, and he was like, his body was better, his mind was sharper, I guess, right? But his like refinement in hockey wasn't that great. It actually got better when he got even older. So that's my take on it. If you don't like it, whatever, let me know in the comments though if you agree or disagree. And be cool on the corner.